As far as Jim DeFede's exclusive interview with Senator Marco Rubio this Sunday, former President Donald Trump will be the keynote speaker at CPAC, the influential conservative group meeting in Orlando.
So, Jim, looks like another sign that the former president remains the head of the Republican Party. You spoke to the senator about his relationship with the former president. Where does that relationship stand right now?
Well, Jim, it was curious to me to find out. One of the questions I had was, obviously, where do they stand now? For even though Donald Trump is sort of, damaged a little bit from the impeachment trial, I would say, I still think he's an important player, particularly here in Florida. So one of the questions I asked was when was the last time Marco Rubio and Donald Trump spoke? Here's the answer. When was the last time you spoke to former President Trump?
Well, I can't give you an exact date. It was probably some point in November, but I don't remember the exact date. I haven't spoken to him since all these things have happened, but I usually don't call him, or we don't, unless I have something to bring up or talk about at that moment or what have you. And obviously a lot's gone on since the end of the election till now in the transition, but I'm sure I will at some point here fairly soon. But I've talked to, his son, I've talked to his Ivanka and Jared a couple of times, and others, and former members that worked in the administration a little bit. But everyone's kind of going on with their lives and resettling as they're getting out of government, and we're sort of going through our own transitions over here. So we just haven't had a chance to talk, but I'm sure that'll hapen.
Do you envision making obviously? Do you envision making a pilgrimage up to Mar-a-Lago as some of your counterparts in the Republican Party have done recently?
Well, it wouldn't be a pilgrimage for me. I mean, it's in Florida. It's the state, Mar-a-Lago. So it would be a visit to someone who lives in our state, as I do people all the time. So I don't consider it a pilgrimage. I'm actually, I don't believe I've ever been to Mar-a-Lago at any point, but that may very well come a day where I'll visit there. But for me, it's not a pilgrimage. Other people have to come from other states. For me, it's just a short ride up I-95.
Now, Jim, there were some who actually thought the former president's standing has somewhat been diminished by all of this. That doesn't seem to be the case, though, with Senator Rubio. So how tricky has the relationship been? I know he says they haven't spoken much, but there's clearly still a connection there.
Well, Marco Rubio needs to stay in Donald Trump's good graces. I mean, last night we sort of talked about the rumors of Ivanka Trump possibly running, and he shot those down, and Ivanka Trump says she's not interested in running. But that still doesn't mean that Marco Rubio isn't worried about having a challenger challenge him from the right. And the best way for any challenger on the right to come at Marco Rubio will be with the support of Donald Trump. So I think it's going to be very important for Marco Rubio to keep in Donald Trump's good graces so he doesn't have to worry about that. And along those lines, when we come up at 7 o'clock, you're going to hear Marco Rubio talk at length about Donald Trump's responsibility, or at least what he thinks is Donald Trump's responsibility for the events of January 6th. And you hear just how cautious Marco Rubio will be. So that's a big part of our conversation tonight at 7, and of course again on Sunday.
Look forward to that. Thank you, Jim DeFede, about his conversation with Senator Marco Rubio.
And you can watch that interview with Senator Rubio on Facing South Florida this Sunday morning at 11:30.